I'm gonna give it about a minute and then we'll get started. Okay, we'll jump in. It is session 10, you guys. We made it to the end. Hopefully you can still see the screen. Today we're going to be talking about triggers and ways to stay motivated now that we've made it to the end of the wellness challenge. So kudos for sticking it out for 10 weeks and hopefully learning some more, but mainly help adopting healthy behaviors. So hopefully you've been able to get a few to stick. But today we'll talk about things that maybe can trip us up, but there's some good practical ways that we can stay motivated to keep us on task. So we'll talk about those and watch a video about that as well. Just a little bit of recap of what we've been learning about. Hopefully we've driven home the importance of eating protein and fat and the right carbs in your diet. Nutrition and diet can be a huge part of weight maintenance and weight loss, probably a bigger part than fitness for sure. The importance of strength training as a tool to help you lose weight and keep the weight off. Staying active throughout your day. And today we're going to add about tips and tools on how to stick with it. So making these new behaviors into habits for the long term. So we're going to jump right into triggers and then we'll get into motivation. But there are many different triggers and we all have probably different triggers that are going to trip us up, whether it's in our diet, lack of activity, too much stress, all those sorts of things. So many of us have lots of different triggers. Some common ones are listed here. Emotions. Certain emotions can elicit triggers for us. Stress or uncontrolled stress. Maybe family gatherings or other places where there are multiple people in a crowd, grocery shopping or just shopping in general, relationships, fatigue, boredom, loneliness. There are many different triggers out there. And we're going to do a little activity that helps you identify maybe what some of yours are. There's a few tips here before we jump into figuring out what your particular triggers are, but making a plan can help you stay on track and avoid triggers. Basically, this is you acknowledging what your trigger is and making sort of an action plan on how you're going to overcome it or address it and be prepared for it. That's really the importance of overcoming triggers, is being prepared and having a plan on how to act. Keeping a food diary can be helpful because that can also help keep you on track, similar to sort of having a plan. Having support and a support system around you to help also provide some accountability to yourself in helping avoid some of the temptations, which is the next one, removing temptations. So figuring out what those triggers are and if they are physical things, being able to remove yourself or those things from your environment. Coping with stress, so that stress isn't a trigger for you, but finding healthy mechanisms for coping. Reframing any of those triggers or threats into challenges. So trying to get a different mindset about what those threats might be and not looking at them so much as like failures, but opportunities to learn from, like the last one says, learn from your setbacks. So what does this look like in application? There are a couple questions. So if you've got scratch paper, you can do this yourself. But just take a minute and write down like what triggers some of your unhealthy habits, whether that's maybe related to eating or lack of exercise or anything really, that you think maybe contributes to getting you off course for what some of your health goals are according to this challenge. So think about that. If you got a paper handy, write it down or just run through it in your mind. But what are some of the triggers to your unhealthy habits? And I'll give you a couple seconds. So I wrote down a couple of mine here and you can see them. One, I get super lazy after supper. Obviously, I cook for the family. And then once we're done, we all go to the living room and I just plop down and it can be super demotivating, I guess, to stay active or to do healthy things beyond supper time because my body just kind of gives up and laziness sets in. Grocery shopping also can be a struggle for me. I tend to be someone who buys the same items every time I shop, and a lot of times those aren't healthy items. So just out of a again habit of buying things like I always do, not necessarily setting me up for success. Number three is a huge one for me right now that I'm trying to work on and not setting time in my work calendar to make time to work out or get up and even move. And then also family gatherings are a big thing. My family, I don't know, I think maybe most families, but food is always like a centerpiece. Whenever all of the families come back to grandma's house or whatever, I mean, it's not just like a couple dishes that are served at lunch or supper. It's like, I don't know, 7 different items for the main meal plus side salads and everything else. So there's always too much food. So then the next question you ask yourself after you've identified some of your triggers are strategies or ways that you can cope with these triggers. So think about like whatever your unhealthy trigger was that you listed up below. Try to come up with an action plan or a game idea of how you can combat that trigger. How can you best cope with when you might experience that trigger. So take a minute and just think about what you might do. So some of my examples were as far as sitting down after supper and getting lazy was more to create like a list. I'm definitely someone who likes a checklist and notes, but make a list of things around the house that I'd like to accomplish, chores, and that way my goal would be once supper is done that I look at that list and pick something to do rather than go to the living room and just plop down. So kind of keep my body moving. If I'm grocery shopping, going with a list before I go to the store. So again, coming prepared, being ready. So when those triggers of things I want to buy that are gonna derail me, come across the aisle, I've got a plan and a list that I'm sticking with. One thing I have started to do is schedule fitness breaks into my Outlook calendar. Again, this is to prompt me to get in and work out and fit those movement chunks into my day when I know I won't have time elsewhere. As far as family gatherings, I could ask people to maybe limit options of what we're serving or just bring healthier dishes of whatever we might be having. So hopefully you can think of some ways that you can cope with triggers. But the main thing is to be able to identify what are those triggers first and then always having a plan to deal with them. And my computer froze. Sorry. There we go. Okay, let's jump into motivation. So anytime you're motivated to do something, it's pretty easy to stick with it, right? So how do we develop that motivation into this program? One, finding support can be helpful. That accountability partner, I don't know how many of you maybe have a walking buddy or someone you're gonna report to at certain times of the day to do a workout or whatever it might be. That can be helpful. Same thing as maybe this challenge when you knew you had to weigh in once a week and report at the end of the challenge or whatever it might be. That could be helpful in sort of a support system. Setting goals, both long and short term, is super helpful to staying motivated because you can see progress, and progress often means success. And when we're successful at things, we continue to want to do those things. Don't forget to celebrate your successes. That makes, builds more motivation as well. Making visual charts. Some people are very much visual learners and visual motivators. You might be someone who also is good at journaling, and that's a good way for you to like reflect back to see where you've been, and that will motivate you to continue on the journey that you are. Sharing your successes with others, supporting someone else, that can be helpful too. Maybe taking your habits and putting them into action with another person. So it not only reinforces what you're doing, but you're helping someone do the same thing, and that can help. And then developing habits is huge. I think it's like 21 days before a new behavior takes set into becoming a habit. So something that takes several weeks. There was an article I came across that listed 9 habits of people who have strong motivation. These are some of the 9 things they listed. Make a plan, set intentions, know the importance of movement, so being active throughout the day, keeping a routine and structure, tracking progress and celebrating your wins, which we talked about, expressing gratitude, always doing your best, knowing your consequences, similar to like, triggers derailing you, taking care of yourself, and focusing on your own path. So I'm going to show you a quick video that's about triggers and how to handle triggers practically. It's 10 minutes long, so just stick with it, but it's got some good information at the end and some practical ways that you guys can create motivation and also kind of form your environments to help you avoid those triggers or overcome those triggers. There's a neat quote at the beginning of this that says, if we don't create and control our own environments, then the environment will create and control us. So that's, you think about it like, do you live in or work in an area where the break room has all unhealthy snacks, or someone's always bringing in cookies and bars? Or do you work in an environment where healthy choices are easy to access? Or maybe at home, is it easy for you to work out? Do you have equipment at home? Do you have your bag packed in the morning? Do you have a gym membership? You have to be in charge of the environment and create it to make it work for you rather than vice versa. So anyways, we'll watch this quick and then we will open it up for questions and wrap up. Oops, maybe.
I recently read Triggers, Creating Behavior That Lasts, Becoming the Person You Want to Be, by Marshall Goldsmith. Goldsmith says, if we do not create and control our environment creates and controls us, and turns us into someone we do not recognize. Whether you realize it or not, your environment is by far the most important factor that determines whether you'll succeed or fail implementing a new behavior, like trying to exercise every day, or banishing an old behavior, like getting angry or confrontational in work meetings. Your environment is full of triggers that zap your will and guide your behavior in subtle ways. You may want to eat healthy, but when you're triggered by a series of frustrating emails and a real-time chart that shows your stocks losing value by the second, the environment-induced anxiety makes you opt for the leftover pizza in the fridge at lunch instead of the salad you were going to prepare. You may want to be more patient with your child, but when you're triggered by a loud TV in the background, a messy house, and a phone that keeps buzzing with notifications, it's nearly impossible to be present, patient, and playful with your child. The first step to creating behavior change that lasts, like eating healthier or being more patient with people you love, is to adopt the extreme belief that your environment is the sole reason for everything you do. Now, your environment may not be the only reason you do what you do, but temporarily adopting this belief is an excellent way to start changing your behavior. With this belief in mind, it's clear that the only way you can change your behavior is to eliminate or anticipate counterproductive triggers in your environment, and then create new productive triggers in your environment. Let's see how this works by taking a negative habit that's worth changing, like arguing with your partner and saying things you later regret. First, think back to recent arguments you've had and what environmental forces, aka triggers, that may have led to the argument. Now, the obvious trigger is your partner telling you to do something you promised to do with a condescending tone. But upon deeper reflection, you may realize that there were other, more subtle triggers in your environment, which all but ensured you would respond in a hostile way to almost anything your partner said. One trigger might be listening to news on the radio or listening to a political podcast, which slowly deteriorates your positive mood. Another trigger were the idiots on the road on your way home from work. And lastly, upon entering your house, you checked your email on your phone and became aware of more problems at work, which put you in a confrontational state of mind. Once you identify counterproductive environmental triggers, systematically approach each of those triggers in one of two ways. First, eliminate triggers you can control. In this example, you could delete all political podcasts from your subscription feed. Then you could keep your phone in the glove compartment of your vehicle until after you catch up with your partner and cook dinner, so you're less inclined to check email after work. After actively trying to eliminate triggers you can control, you then must anticipate and mentally prepare for triggers you can't eliminate. This includes the idiot drivers on the road. Anticipating and preparing is like checking the weather forecast in the morning to know how you should approach the day. By pausing to see that there's rain in the forecast, you can be equipped with an umbrella and rain jacket so you don't get soaked on the way to your car. Likewise, if you know you're going to encounter people or situations or temptations that trigger you to act in counterproductive ways, you need to prepare for those triggers and choose how you're going to respond in advance. It's helpful each morning to remind yourself of the behavior you're trying to change, and then jot down all the counterproductive triggers you think you might encounter during the day. To ensure you don't get carried away, give yourself just a minute to think of all the counterproductive triggers you might encounter. Then take the piece of paper or index card with the list of triggers you've written down and put it in your pocket for the rest of the day. Having that sheet of paper or index card in your pocket will act as a constant reminder throughout the day that you need to maintain a heightened sense of awareness for triggers in your environment that are conspiring against you and shaping your behavior in unwanted ways. Now that you've done your best to eliminate or anticipate counterproductive triggers, it's time to create productive triggers. To improve the odds of coming home in a good mood, and thus reducing your chances of getting into a heated argument with your partner, you can create a playlist of songs that you listened to way back when you met your partner and fell in love. When you put this playlist on the way home from work, it can trigger feelings of affection that you have for your partner, and you'll be more likely to respond with kindness and compassion to whatever your partner says when you get home. When you're trying to create or preserve all types of positive behaviors, you must load your environment with productive triggers to the point where you almost feel overwhelmed by them. Here's a few ways to do that. First, strategically place objects throughout your environment. If you wanted to create a new strength training behavior, you could keep a grip strengthening device on your kitchen counter and push-up handles in the middle of your living room. Then you could put keywords that trigger you to think of working out on post-it notes and place them on your fridge, your bathroom mirror, your bedroom door, and your office desk. A second way to load up your environment with productive triggers is to multiply your digital reminders. This includes reminder app notifications, calendar event notifications, or phone alarms during the day. Also includes recurring emails to yourself with the behavior you want to change, or SMS reminders on your phone. I personally use a service called AskMeEvery.com that sends me a pre-programmed text message at specific times during the day. And the last way to load up your environment with productive triggers is to surround yourself with people, virtually or in person, who promote and praise the behavior you're striving for. If you wanted to work out more, start a group chat with the people you know who value fitness and encourage them to post images of their workouts or text messages that detail the number of sets of an exercise they just completed. If you can eliminate or anticipate counterproductive triggers and create productive triggers, you're well on your way to changing your behavior. But if you want a behavior change that lasts, you need a method that consistently pulls you away from the gravitational force of your old habits. Adult behavior change is one of the hardest endeavors in life. As an adult, you have so many old habits and social connections pulling at you and insisting you maintain the status quo. When you slip up and fail to execute your new behavior, you'll quickly fall back into your old ways. But not if you embrace active questioning. When you develop an active questioning nighttime ritual, you gradually and consistently thrust yourself towards the person you want to be and counteract the gravitational force of your old habits. Here's how active questioning works. Before you go to sleep each night, answer a question about your desired behavior that starts with the phrase, "Did I do my best to?" Like, did I do my best to work out today? When measuring and evaluating a new behavior, most people ask themselves passive questions, like, did I work out today? But when you ask passive questions, you're more inclined to make excuses for inaction. Like, I didn't work out because the gym was closed, or I didn't work out because I had to work late. But when you start asking yourself active questions, like, did I do my best to work out today? You suddenly hold yourself accountable and feel responsible for inaction. Because if the gym was closed or you had to stay late at work, you could have completed a few push-ups before bed if you were doing your best. The more you ask yourself active questions, the more inclined you are to improve your change strategy instead of giving up when your initial strategy isn't working. In other words, you transition from expecting change to happen to making it happen. Begin an active questioning ritual tonight by creating a spreadsheet with the behaviors you want to change or maintain in the left column, all starting with, did I do my best to? So for example, did I do my best to start work without procrastinating? Did I do my best to avoid distraction during my focused work blocks? And did I do my best to be considerate and patient with everyone I interacted with today? Once your active questions are written down in the left column, shrink the next 31 columns and create a grid with the numbers 1 to 31 at the top to represent each day of the month. Then print out the spreadsheet on one page and place it on your nightstand. Now, before going to sleep tonight, write down a value between 0 and 10 for each active question in the appropriate column. If, over the course of a few days, you enter a series of low values to a particular question, you'll gradually find the drive to improve your effort because there's intense discomfort in knowing you're not doing your best to follow through on something you promised yourself you would do. When you develop an active questioning nighttime ritual, you'll naturally start wondering, am I doing my best throughout the day? And find ways to execute your behavior change despite how busy or tired you feel. In the end, assume your environment is dictating your behavior and eliminate or anticipate counterproductive triggers that support behaviors you want to change. Then, create productive environmental triggers to guide you towards the person you want to be. After optimizing your environment, ask yourself active behavior questions every night that start with the phrase, "Did I do my best too?" Write down your answers on a scale of 0 to 10 on a piece of paper. The more you practice active questioning, the more engaged you'll be in the behavior change process and make a change that lasts. That was the core message that I gathered from Triggers by Marshall Goldsmith. This book is one of my favorite behavior change books. I highly recommend it. If you would like a one-page PDF summary of insights that I gathered from this book, just click the link below and I'd be happy to email it to you. If you already subscribe to the free Productivity Game email newsletter, this PDF is sitting in your inbox. If you like this video, please share it. And as always, thanks for watching and have yourself a productive week.
Okay. So hopefully those are some tangible, practical things that you could try to incorporate into your day to help you stay motivated and on track in dealing with those triggers. I know they seem super simple, but putting them into practice could be super beneficial to us. So I do plan on trying the spreadsheet thing too. I think it will be interesting to see. I'm definitely a visual person. And I know I have some struggles on not doing my best on things. So I really like that approach. So anyways, maybe you'll take a few things away from that. So that's our session, our last session today. We have no homework other than you to turn in your tracking sheet after you track your weight and anything else you might have been tracking up until this point. You can send it to my email or you can slip it in the inner office mail. If you want to put it in an envelope, it can make its way here to the health department to me. And then I'll probably start to tabulate them, not next week, but the week after. And then we will let everyone know how everyone did. So I hope you took some things away from us. Does anyone have questions or comments or anything like that? I didn't see any in the chat, but I wasn't really looking very closely. So nothing there. So, okay. Well, thank you all for participating. It's been a long 10 weeks, but hopefully good 10 weeks. And I hope you've taken away a few things, but more so starting to put some habits into or some behaviors into habit. So I know I definitely have improved in a few areas, which I'm thankful for, but I think it was the support and the accountability of this challenge that did it. So hopefully you guys were in the same boat. All right. Well, thank you guys and we'll take care.